Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. Do you want to learn how to make cheap DIY fertilizer that specifically targets the needs of each one of your plants? Stay tuned and I'll show you exactly how I do that. So like most people, when I started out in this hobby, I saw these amazing, beautiful planted tanks and I wanted to have one. So what did I do? I went to the store and I bought as many plants as I possibly could and tried to cram them all into one tank. And what I found out is that some plants grew really easily and other plants didn't. One of the ones in particular that I had a hard time with in the beginning was Java Fern. And Java Fern was supposed to be this easy beginner plant. As you can see from this footage, my Java Fern is growing beautifully now. So let me tell you a little bit about how I did that and how I made it grow. One of the things I noticed at the beginning was that my plants had nutrient deficiencies. I identified that by looking at different charts that you can find online. I'll leave some links down in the description that show you what plants do when they have nutrient deficiencies. In the case of my Java Fern, it was having a potassium deficiency, which I could identify by the holes in the leaves. I researched how to fix these deficiencies, and of course I found that you had to add fertilizer. But after about 2 months of buying fertilizer and using it as instructed, I realized that I was probably going to spend a fortune on fertilizer. And so I started looking for an alternative way to make my own fertilizer and make it cheaper. I found out that you can mix specific elements in distilled water to make fertilizer. And so what I ended up doing was using a website, which I'll put down in the description, called Rotala Butterfly, that shows you how much to mix in distilled water to make the fertilizer. But I found that it was rather frustrating because it asks you the tank size, and you put in the tank size and you put in the concentration that you're trying to get to, and I had to have multiple different containers of fertilizer for multiple different tanks. Every tank had its own container of fertilizer, which was really frustrating because I had to constantly be making more fertilizer. Well, I found a way around that, and I'll show you in this next video.
Alright, so the website that we're going to use today is called Rotala Butterfly. And you may have heard of this website before, but I'm going to show you a different way of using it to make your dosing a lot easier for each of your fish tanks. So what you do is you come down here, this first box that my aquarium is, you're going to set your aquarium size to 1 gallon. You're dosing a 1 gallon aquarium, and what that's going to do is allow you to extrapolate the number that you get for 1 milliliter per gallon, so that if you have a 75 gallon tank, you could just do 75 milliliters. And I'll show you how the rest of this works. You're going to do my fertilizers or DIY. You're going to need to identify your nutrient deficiency before you come here, and then you're going to need to order the powder that you need. Most common that I've heard of are potassium deficiency and iron deficiencies. I use potassium chloride, and I also use iron gluconate, ferrous gluconate, which is one of the other common ones, and I mix both of those together. I'll show you what I do when I figure out how much potassium to mix into my solution. I do KCl, which is potassium chloride. I'm going to use a solution. My container size depends on what container size I'm using, and I'll show you how I figured that out here in a second in the next little clip. But for now, I'm just going to put 1,000 milliliters just to show you what we're talking about. But this is the size of the solution that you're mixing your powder into, and this helps to make sure that there is not too much powder that it can't dissolve in the solution. You need to have enough liquid, enough distilled water to be able to dissolve the powder that you're putting in there. Your dose size is 1 milliliter. I'm trying to figure out how to do 1 milliliter per 1 gallon. I'm calculating for a dose to reach a target, which in the case of potassium is about 20 to 30 parts per million. I'll just put in 20 parts per million for now. So I'm trying to get 20 parts per million of potassium. Now I'm going to hit calculate, and then I go down here and I've got, in order to achieve my target of 20 parts per million, I need 144.35 grams of potassium chloride, and I'll show you what I do with that here in the next clip. But what's awesome about this is that's to make 1 milliliter in 1 gallon. So now I can have 1 milliliter per gallon no matter what fish tank I'm using, and I can have only one DIY fertilizer for every fish tank that I have that I want to dose with fertilizer. Absolute game changer. So now in this next clip, let me show you how I mix everything.
Alright, so for this part I'm going to show you how I mix my fertilizer. The two nutrients that I tend to be the most deficient in is potassium and iron. So I have potassium chloride and iron ferrous gluconate is what it's called. I've already done the calculations using the program that I just showed you. In this case, I'm going to be using 150 milliliters because that's what I had available.
So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be measuring out the exact amount of ferrous gluconate, which is 22.79 grams, and potassium chloride, which is 216 grams. So what I need to do that is a regular kitchen scale. I'm going to start with the iron gluconate, and I'm going to set my container on here and zero my kitchen scale. And then once it's zeroed, I'm going to come up with 22.79 grams. Somewhere between 22 and 23. Once you get that, then you can just add that to your solution. And then I'm going to mix the potassium next. I'm not going to stir it yet. I'm just going to let it sit there. I'm going to zero this with my new container. All right, now I need 216 grams of potassium. The reason my container size is smaller is because I didn't have enough potassium, so hopefully I got enough to do at least this. Oh man, I have 220. It's perfect. All right, let me just get rid of a touch here. 217. All right, and I forgot to mention at the beginning, this has to be either distilled water or RODI water. In my case, I didn't have any distilled water left, but I do have RODI water because I have an RODI filter. So it has to be perfectly clean, pure, nothing but water. You can't have any additives. You don't want to use drinking water or tap water because that's going to have other things in it. And if those other things aren't bad, I guess it'll work in a pinch. But if you want to know exactly what's in your solution and if you want everything to dissolve properly, you need to use distilled water or RODI water. So now that I have this mixed up, I'm going to pour this in here, and I'm going to spill some of it, which means it's perfect that I had a little bit left in here. Honestly, this does not have to be that perfect. It's actually kind of cool because it gets kind of cold. The chemical reaction makes it cold. And this is basically it. Once this is done, this will be mixed so that it's 1 milliliter per gallon. So I have a 75-gallon tank full of plants. I can do 1 milliliter. I can do 75 milliliters, and that'll give me the exact dose for that tank. And that'll give me a 20 parts per million of potassium and 0.5 parts per million of iron. So that's it. That's really it.
So there you have it. I hope that helped you out a lot. Using this method is so much easier. I can have a massive container of this fertilizer, and I can use it for every single tank, and it'll last me months. This is such an easy way to fertilize your tank and to give you nice, lush, growing plants that are targeted specifically to the needs of each plant. So I invite you to go check out that website and make your own fertilizer and let me know how it goes. I'd love to hear about it down in the comments. Save yourself a ton of money by doing it yourself. So thanks so much for joining me here today. If you have any questions, drop them down in the comments section. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks a lot. See you in the next one.